President Trump has pulled off the unimaginable. As the world just watched scenes of U.S. Marines from the USS Tripoli boarding and seizing an Iranian cargo ship, something even more stunning is happening in a multi-front revolt against the regime orchestrated by none other than one Donald J. Trump. Stick with the very end of this video because we're about to see the very definition of 4D chess playing out in real time. A perfect mathematical trap in which every single option the mullahs have left on the table leads to the exact same destination: internal collapse. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are now just 48 hours away from the expiration of the 2-week U.S.-Iran ceasefire. While a second round of negotiations is rumored, nothing has been formally scheduled. In the meantime, the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports remains fully in force. The U.S. Navy just blew a large hole in the side of a 900-foot Iranian cargo ship after they refuse orders to stop. The Strait of Hormuz is still effectively closed to Iranian tanker traffic, and Trump has confirmed the blockade stays until a broader agreement is reached. Until then, President Trump has floated resuming strikes on Iranian power plants, bridges, and desalination facilities the moment the clock runs out. But in many ways, the clock has indeed already run out of this regime. What I'm about to show you really is one of the most brilliant pieces of strategic engineering in modern American history. And almost nobody in the legacy media is covering it because it doesn't fit the narrative that Trump is clueless and impulsive and is basically busy wrecking the world. The truth is that the Trump administration has set a trap around the Islamic Republic so airtight, so mathematically perfect, that the regime itself is now the weapon destroying the regime. I want that to hit you. I'll say that again. The regime itself is now the primary weapon destroying the regime. Now, to understand what's happening here, you have to understand that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, is not a military in any conventional sense. The IRGC is a parallel economy with soldiers attached. They control somewhere between 30 to 40% of Iran's entire economic apparatus. So we're talking construction companies, telecommunications networks, oil extraction contracts, banking institutions, ports, airports, you name it. The IRGC owns this like 30, 40% of Iran's economy. And here's the critical piece. The entire justification for the IRGC's existence, its budget, its autonomy, its hundreds of thousands of armed personnel, is the principle of permanent, unending, non-negotiable resistance against the United States and Israel. Take that resistance narrative away, and the IRGC has no reason to exist. Its budget dissolves into the general treasury, its commanders lose their billions, its empire evaporates overnight. So when Iran's relatively pragmatic president Masoud Pezeshkian started signaling to Washington that Iran was ready to negotiate, that the regime finally understood the math of their own situation, the IRGC didn't respond with debate or policy memos or internal meetings. No, the IRGC responded by launching an undeclared war against its own sitting president. They started actively sabotaging every diplomatic channel the Pezeshkian government tried to open. The foreign minister Abbasi described it in almost surreal terms. He said he was sitting at a negotiating table that had no chairs on the opposite side because the IRGC was literally pulling the chairs out from under every foreign delegation before they could even sit down. The president gave orders, but those orders are not being followed. So there's a very real civil war happening right now inside the regime. And President Trump knows it. That's why he was doing cartwheels all this weekend on how a deal's been agreed to. Iran's agreed to giving up its enriched uranium. The United States has completely defeated them. They've completely caved. And what you got to understand is rhetoric like that only serves to provoke the IRGC to taking out Iran's own moderate leadership. So Trump's rhetoric is effectively getting the regime to fight itself without a single American soldier involved. So this is what I mean about the regime being the chief weapon taking out the regime. The IRGC can only survive to the extent that it's perceived as standing up effectively to U.S. forces. Trump's Iran is caving rhetoric is aimed at igniting the ire of the IRGC to take out its own leadership, who are supposedly compromising with rather than confronting U.S. forces. So that's the first regime debilitating dynamic that Trump has unleashed. Then, of course, there is his astonishing move that no one saw coming with the Strait of Hormuz, right? 17 miles wide at its narrowest point, 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through it. Every time Iran got squeezed in the past, in 2012, 2018, 2019, the regime threatened to close the strait. And every single time, global oil markets panicked and Washington backed down. The IRGC's entire credibility, both internationally and domestically, rested on that one threat, that one leverage point they had. But Trump didn't take the bait. Instead of trying to force the strait open with a carrier strike group or things like that, instead of that, U.S. forces blockaded Iranian oil. No one saw that coming. No one saw a blockade of the blockade. American naval forces started stopping Iranian tankers, inspecting them, turning them back. But the strait itself, it stayed wide open, again, largely because of U.S. forces. Ships flagged to other nations sailed through freely. Global oil markets kept humming along. It's still just in the low $80 a barrel right now. Only Iran was isolated. Only Iranian exports were blocked. You see the genius here. The economic devastation that they were threatening to impose on the world was now being imposed only on them. In one fell swoop, Trump took away the only leverage that Iran thought it had. Iran's now losing over $400 million a day. But that's only half of it, because at the same time, the Gulf of America is seeing a doubling in international oil tanker traffic that's been rerouted to buy American oil. So while Iran is literally starving, American energy is more vibrant than ever. But the problem is that the moment the regime starts negotiating so as to end the U.S. enforced blockade, the IRGC's resistance narrative dies. And the IRGC's entire empire, as a result, their 30 to 40% of the economy, their billions, their autonomy, evaporates with it. So if the IRGC sabotages every negotiation, they end up dying because of the blockade. If they end up negotiating, they end up dying because of the end of the narrative that keeps them alive. Either way, the regime is shot. Either way, the regime is a goner. Escalate, you collapse. Negotiate, you collapse. Sit still, you collapse. Every single branch of the decision tree, every single path leads to the exact same destination. This is not military strategy, gang. This is 4D chess on steroids. And we ain't seen nothing yet. But first, I just found out something wild about stem cells. They're like tiny repair crews in your body, helping fix things that need healing. This is Ronnie Coleman, 8 times Mr. Olympia, sharing how stem cells helped him when nothing else could.
For the last 2 years, I've been getting stem cells, and it's been the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life.
Really?
Yeah, but you got to go out of this country to do it, because they don't really allow the real stem cells that comes from the placenta,
Yeah.
They don't allow that here in the United States because politics.
Stem cell treatments can be incredibly powerful, but they're also extremely expensive. And many of the more advanced therapies aren't approved by the FDA, which means people often have to travel abroad to access them. They've been studied for their potential to help repair joints, support the spine, and regenerate tissue. What's interesting is that researchers have also looked at ways to stimulate your body's own stem cells. The team at Black Forest developed cocoa flavanols that studies suggest may help release stem cells from your bone marrow into your bloodstream where they can support natural repair processes. This isn't your average cocoa. It's a stem cell power-up. I mix it in my coffee every morning. It tastes great. It's got no sugar. It's only 20 calories. If you're experiencing aging or slow recovery or low energy, your stem cells may not be as active. Cocoa flavanols can help stimulate them, and studies show they may increase stem cell circulation by over 100%. Go to my link in the description below, and for the next 48 hours, you can get a buy one, get one completely free promo for 48 hours only. Make sure to click on that link below right now. We're now getting reports of uprisings starting to bubble up throughout Iran in dozens of cities at once, from Tehran to Tabriz, from Isfahan to Shiraz, overwhelming the IRGC's capacity to respond. Crusher protests of one neighborhood and another ignites across town, moves security forces east, and the west explodes. And then the chant that has genuinely terrified the regime's command structure. The army is with the people. The army is with the people, because remember, Iran has two militaries, the IRGC and the Artesh, the regular conscript army. And there are reports that the Artesh commanders are now in quiet back-channel communication with President Pezeshkian's faction, effectively taking sides in the internal war. And here's the genius of it all, the masterstroke. Washington doesn't need to do anything else. The United States didn't defeat Iran by attacking it. Washington created the conditions in which Iran had no good options and then simply waited for Iran to run out of bad ones. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, they're all quietly creating distance from Tehran. China's saying nothing because Chinese vessels still sail freely through Hormuz and are getting an increasing amount of their oil from American energy, about $10 billion a month worth. Russia can't help because Moscow's drowning in Ukraine. Iran isn't surrounded so much by enemies as it is by something far more devastating, indifference. This is how great powers actually win in the 21st century, not with invasions, not with regime change wars that drag on for 20 years, but with decision trees, with creating mathematical traps, with selective pressure applied to exactly the right pressure point at exactly the right moment. The Islamic Republic that has terrorized the Middle East for 47 years is not going to be defeated ultimately by American bombs. It's going to be defeated by contradictory dynamics within its own regime, within its own IRGC commanders, standing in secure rooms, realizing that every move they make on the chessboard leads to the same inevitable checkmate. And when that final realization sinks in, when the Artesh moves, when the gasoline lines become bread lines, when the proxies stop picking up the phone for good, the regime won't fall in a week or a month. It'll fall in an afternoon, just like it did in 1979. If you love seeing faith, family, and freedom winning again, you'll love Turley Clips. These are short, uplifting highlights from our show filled with stories of renewal, courage, and hope that prove a new conservative age is rising every single day. Subscribe to Turley Clips today and stay inspired, encouraged, and connected to a movement that's building a brighter future.